Hello, Wobbly Phil here. Tooling around on my Trident this week, I was enjoying the smooth power of the 750 Triple, a testament to those clever chaps at Triumph in the 1960s. Sadly, Honda trumped Triumph in 1969 by launching the CB750 with not 3 but 4 cylinders, 33% more cylinders. I've owned a few Japanese inline 4s and boy are they smooth, but there's still room for improvement. How about 6 cylinders? Super smooth. How about rotary pistons that go round in circles instead of up and down? Surely that would be even smoother. And that, my friends, is just what Norton brought to the market in the late 1970s. The 60s was the space age. If we could land on the moon, we could sure put a compact, lightweight, more powerful and super smooth new way of burning fossil fuels into a motorcycle. BSA's development department, led by former Rolls-Royce engineer David Garside, were working on it at their country house retreat in Warwickshire in the English Midlands, and based their first prototype on the Sachs rotary engine used in the NSU Spider sports car. You may notice a German connection here. You see, contrary to my schoolboy assumption that the term
Wankel rotary engine
had something to do with autoeroticism.
Wankel engine, Wankel in there.
The engine was in fact named after its German inventor Felix Wankel. Wankel presented his engine design to the Association of German Engineers in 1960. I get dizzy spells whenever I try and explain anything mechanical, but basically Wankel had been working on his novel engine throughout the 1950s. It involved a triangular piston rotating in an oval cylinder and was based on his previous design for a compressor in the 1930s. Later in the 60s, Japanese carmaker Mazda licensed the design, improved it and was using it in their cars right up until last year. Suzuki also picked it up and put it in their RE5 in the mid-70s, with its quirky clocks being a nod to the roundness of the engine. But back at BSA, things weren't going as smoothly as anticipated. BSA merged with Norton in 1973 to form the British manufacturing blob Norton Villiers Triumph, or NVT, which we soon referred to as Not Very Terrific. I have personal history with this particular bunch of wankles, which I'll return to in a future video. Within a few years, NVT was on its knees, but development of the rotary engine was saved for the nation, with its promising design for a two-rotor Wankel. By now, with all this Wankel talk, the bike press was frothing at the mouth. In 1978, Bike magazine even ran a competition to find a name for the new model, with the winner being a Mr. D. Oakley. His winning name? The Wanks Norton. 25 prototype bikes were made in 1979 and a run of 500 production bikes was planned. But when the 1980s came around, everything that wasn't to do with making city slickers richer was going down the gurgler here in the UK. In 1984, the remaining rump of Norton managed to squeeze out the Rotary Interpol for Her Majesty's Rozzers, and even came up with a water-cooled version, the Interpol 2. Later, the Interpol 2 was stripped of its PC Plod paraphernalia in a limited run of 100. They were circumspect about who bought them because they required regular maintenance and could become toasty hot, perhaps necessitating owners calling the RAC, who, one presumes, would potentially arrive on their own perfectly maintained Interpols. I wonder if that actually happened to anyone. If it happened to you, drop me a line in the comments. The Commander put out around 80 horses on a notional capacity of around 600cc, which was phenomenal for the time. To put that into perspective, Honda's CB750 was only harnessing 73 GGs almost a decade later. The racing fraternity took notice of the power output and lightweight. That culminated in this magnificent beast. There's a whole heap of stuff to talk about when it comes to the racing rotaries, but that's for another day. By the 1990s, the whole story of the Norton Company becomes very clouded, involving, as it does, a former Canadian real estate flipper who tried to seize every historic Norton from museums around the world so he could auction them off. He ended up wearing a prison Rolex, an investment firm that owns a professional ice hockey team, a stymied purchase by MV Agusta, US ownership of the name, a stonking V8 that never got made, and a former fireworks salesman who was convicted in 2022 of stealing £11 million from Norton employee pension schemes. Norton is now safely in the hands of the third biggest motorcycle company in India, who have built a new retooled factory and re-engineered the 961 Commando to eliminate its quirks and foibles. You can still find the Norton Classics and the Commander for sale, with owners looking for anything from £7,000 to £12,000. Finding someone to recommission them if they've been in storage for a while might be a challenge. Could Norton have pulled it off with a Wankel? Well, there was limited funding and resources behind it, much like the Hesketh and the Silk. Those motorcycles vanished and the Norton Rotaries went the same way. It just took a little longer. At the end of the day, it never really had the development and funding thrust required to propel it into production orbit. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please consider liking, subscribing, commenting and sharing to let YouTube know we're doing something right here at 3 Phils. Thank you.
Are you embarrassed easily? I am. But it's nothing to worry about. It's all part of growing up and being British.